Welcome to Double Fries No Slaw. It is Sunday, June 19th. It's Juneteenth. It's also Father's Day here at Double Fries No Slaw. Happy Father's Day to anybody watching. Hopefully you guys spend some time with your dad or a father figure or remember some fond memories of your father. Whatever your situation is, hope everybody has a good Father's Day. If you've got kids, hope you enjoy hanging out with them. Dude, Father's Day is crazy these days in my house. My wife's like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to chill. I don't want to do anything at all." So anyway, Richie, happy Father's Day to you. We'll count the dog today, but hopefully you're having a good Sunday.
Yeah, been a nice weekend. Did a whole lot of nothing yesterday, and got about 3 pounds of ribeyes that I'll be making here shortly. So I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, my dad loved steak, so in his honor. And like you said, I got a dog. Give me partial points. The wife said it's cool. I can watch golf all day, so I'm gonna take advantage for sure.
I saw that. I saw those tweets. I saw that she had given the okay there. So, well, good stuff. We'll jump right into it so that we can kind of get into the rest of Father's Day. I know that we all have different plans and all different things that we're doing to celebrate, but Double Fries No Slaw brought to you by Guthrie's in Tallahassee. You can visit both of those locations at 1818 West Tennessee Street and 2550 North Monroe. Tell them Double Fries No Slaw sent you. Appreciate their partnership. Appreciate all they do for us. Again, going to have a tailgate. I actually locked in a location. I'm paying for it tomorrow for a double fry / roll up tailgate in New Orleans. Working on a way to try and figure out how to get Guthrie's out there, but they'll be there in spirit either way. So shout out to Guthrie's, shout out to their partnership and their support over these first couple of years that we've been going. For those that don't know, we brought Guthrie's on week 2. Our first episode ever was DeMarcus Walker and Andy Staples. And I reached out to Guthrie's and they loved the idea. And so they came on week 2 of us having a podcast. So they've been with us for almost 2 years now and appreciate them for sticking with us.
Who was it? Was it was it Taylor Banks who got back from Eugene and tweeted us a picture of the gut box?
I saw that. Yeah. Shout out the track and field team. Hey, we do shout outs like at the end, but shout out Trey Cunningham, named the National Outdoor Athlete of the Year by Track and Field News. But yeah, Taylor Banks tagged us in a tweet tagged us on Instagram with Guthrie's. My man finished up the regular season, went out to the national championships, finished top 4 in the country, and came back home and got a gut box. So shout out Taylor Banks, shout out the track team. They don't get as much love. We always save the around the horn and stuff for the end of the show, but glad to give them a shout out here at the beginning. But we will jump into it. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, if you could do us a favor and hit the share button, hit the retweet button. If you're on iTunes, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, like all those things. If you're listening to it later, several of you listen to it later on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that. Hit the share button. We certainly would appreciate it. If you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, you can comment. We'll play your comments at the bottom if they're not terrible. And respond to them if you guys have any questions. But let's jump into it. 2022 class news. Antavius Woody arrives in Tallahassee. Had to overcome some hurdles to get in, some academic stuff, but he is on campus. He is ready to go. Classes start, well, it's not tomorrow, right? Tuesday. To be into the fall semester, you have to be registered, right? Classes don't start. Out of here. Classes don't start until the
summer
fall.
Summer C should be starting here pretty soon. So a lot of the freshmen will enroll in summer classes just to start knocking out these credits so they can take a much lighter load in the fall.
Yeah. So we'll have Woody on campus, offensive lineman. You probably won't make an impact this year. You would hope he doesn't have to see the field this year, but very good at Florida State to get him in and get him on campus and ready to go. And then another one, Abamie Tifasi. Is that how you say it, Richie? That's pretty close, right?
I was glad you had to say it because I would butcher that name so bad.
6'4", 300-pound defensive lineman. He took Florida State over Arkansas and Virginia Tech. Also got a Miami offer just a couple of weeks before. So, again, happy Father's Day. Shout out, Mike Norvell's sons and Coach Hamilton's as the men's football and basketball went 3-0 against them this year. But reclassified from 2023 to 2022. He is part of Florida State's 2022 recruiting class. Will not see the field this year. I think he's taking an academic redshirt is what I read, right? But will be here for the future. Glad to get him in the class. And the 2020 class is done. We're to June with everything that's kind of crazy with college football now. It's crazy that like you have these late additions to your 2022 class. It seemed like for a little while, which is not unheard of, right? Like, you can kind of have things like guys just kind of enrolling in June, but with so many guys that just kind of sign early and then sign at the regular signing day in February, a couple of late additions to the class. Won't make impacts this year, but good to have them in the fold and hopefully kind of keep this thing pointed the right direction for years to come, right?
Yeah, and I think it's positive on both fronts. So obviously, Woody, it shows that, how often do we have a kid that, on signing day, they don't get the letter of intent because the coaches feel they're not ready and they don't want to waste that scholarship. To put the work in and get to Tallahassee, it's just really, really happy for that kid because we knew he had a lot of work to do and he got it done. So kudos to him and the staff for help guiding him. And then, like I said, I'm gonna butcher this name, but is it Tallahassee, Tallahassee? I'm not sure. But I think that's really positive because, you went up against Arkansas and Florida State fans may not want to hear it right now. Arkansas is in a better spot right now, and they had a lot of momentum off the season. It's why a lot of people thought he was going to Arkansas, and to pull that out kind of last minute. And I love following recruitments like this, that you'll have someone like, Blowstein puts a tweet out on decision day like, whoa, we're hearing some very interesting things. You're going to want to see this. And then sure enough, he ends up picking Florida State. So, again, very positive both fronts, Woody getting here and then, Norvell and the staff being able to close and hold off a SEC school like Arkansas.
Yeah, team that won 9 games last year has a lot of positive things going on with their program. Okay, so we also had a quarterback camp in Tallahassee this week. And did you see who was there?
I did not. Who did we have here?
King Jonah P. Jameis's little brother,
oh, yes,
2026 recruit,
was
on campus throwing the rock around. That's a recruit that I feel like Florida State can't miss on. Right, it's 2026, so we've got some time. Hopefully, we'll be out of the nosedive by then. Have a few winning seasons, compete for the ACC, but that's got to be a recruitment Florida State goes after, right?
I mean, so I don't know how good he is. Yeah, that's who I'm definitely most concerned about. Because if you're Jameis, say what you want about his relationship with Jimbo, they loved each other, right? You always see Jimbo grabbing his face mask. Jimbo's not doing that to some, quarterback who he doesn't think is anything or doesn't have a great relationship with. So yeah, the A&M definitely scares me. If he does turn into be, a 4 or 5 star recruit like Jameis was, Florida State obviously isn't a good spot because the family is very familiar with the university, but yeah, A&M and that oil money, that scares me.
Yeah. Antonor reached out to me this week and we were chatting a little bit and he was actually asking me, well, I won't go into it, but he was actually asking me about some other media stuff. And he's like, what do you think about this? And so I gave him some insight or whatever and said like, it's all right. But anyway, so he's a really good guy. And we were kind of chatting a little bit about my kids, about his kids, obviously massive age gap there, right? Like, as I've got a newborn and he's got, a son in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, the family is, I mean, they love Coach Fisher. Don't get me wrong, but they're Florida State fans. And, he didn't tell me like, we're, Jonah's definitely gonna be at Florida State, but they are Florida State fans for sure. And so it was pretty cool to get to catch up with him a little bit this week and get to chat with him. And remember we had him on the podcast, maybe a year ago, something like that. Maybe it's been a little over a year. So he's a cool guy and always got a bunch of excitement. So as a dad and it's Father's Day, he's always commenting on my kids. He's like, you just look like you are having so much fun with those kids. And I was like, I'll only post the pictures of them, being good and stuff. But for the most part, like I am having fun. They are really cool. So he's a great guy. We'll get him back on here soon. Like I said, I know it's been over a year, I think, since he was on, but he's a great guy.
Yeah, and he truly does love Florida State, right? Like after we did the podcast, like he went and followed me right away, and I looked up, who else he follows, and it's just a bunch of Florida State fans. So he's just all in, like you said, just a really good dude, really good family overall, man. Like I said, if he does turn out to be a blue chip recruit, it's certainly somebody that Florida State. You got to be in the top 2, right? You can't have him drop a top 3 that you're not.
No, one. You just got to sign him, man. Like that's it. There's
we'll see. You know, hopefully Mike Norvell
probably won't even be at A&M
this year. Yeah, who knows? He may have gone to LSU by then or Alabama. Who knows?
I don't have. Okay, so here's a good question. All right, then we'll get back into what we were talking about. But yeah, shout out Jonah P. Shout out all the folks that were camping at Florida State. Some official visits this weekend. Really, really good stuff. You mentioned Knowles 247. I mean, for the really in depth on visits and who was camping and who was there, go follow Blowstein and Sinone and Nee and those guys. Dane, shout out Dane. Got to give everybody a shout out, I guess, over there. But for the in depth stuff there, go check it out. But all right, back to A&M. Do you think this isn't on the outline? But we're flying through this, and we only have a couple more things, so it's all good. You think Jimbo's there if they haven't won a title, right? Which winning a title is hard, and winning a title in the same division as Saban is even harder. Although I guess LSU's done it a couple of times, Auburn's done it. The West is definitely because all you have to do is beat Bama. But and now with Georgia being the monster they are. Do you think he's still there? If they haven't won a title by 2026, is he still there?
I don't know. You'd have to tell me what other jobs had opened up because we're seeing what coaches
by 2026, every job's going to be open. You know what I'm saying? Like everything will have been open. Clemson will have been open. Alabama will have been open.
By 2026,
like coaches don't do 30 years in a place anymore. It's like I think by then everything will
26, like 4 years from now, right?
Yeah, Saban will be gone.
Saban might be gone. I don't think Dabo's gone, and I don't think Dabo's
going to be at Alabama. I think.
I don't think he would leave
because they're going like this.
Yeah, they're, and that's a lot of his own faults. It being so anti the transfer portal, and it's. I'm loving to see it. You definitely get Florida State 2014, 2015 vibes from Clemson right now. But I'll say this: if Jimbo's not at A&M, I think it's because he's at Alabama. If he's not, I don't see him going anywhere else. Just because are you going to leave A&M for LSU? I mean, the money's no different. You have nicer facilities at A&M. You clearly have no problem recruiting at A&M. You just signed the best recruiting class in history. So I'll say he'll still be at A&M. I think Alabama's the only school that could potentially come after him.
So I'm kind of looking at it from the other perspective is if they don't win by 2026, I'm not saying they're going to. I think things will sour there. Yeah, I don't know if they'll have soured enough. I don't know if they will have soured enough to where they would fire him, but it might be like souring enough to where he, similarly to Florida State, tries to jump ship, right? Because he will have been there for how many years, right?
He'll be going into his 10th season. Yeah.
Right. So
no national title in 9 years. And A&M was very clear. They brought him there to win a national championship.
Yeah.
But that's a good question. You fire him if he keeps winning 10 games and goes to, New Year's Six Bowls? You can't fire that.
Georgia did to Mark Richt.
Yeah, he had some.
Those SEC expectations are a little different, man.
Yeah, he also lost to UCF in a bowl game and like a 6-win season. So we'll see.
Yeah,
but it'll be interesting.
But that's essentially what Georgia did to Richt, right? If he goes 9-10 years without winning a title at A&M, right, which he's halfway there now. They're not going to keep him there. I just don't think so. I think that they will go pony up insane money for a Lincoln Riley or Ryan Day, or maybe there's a new up and comer. But I think they'll move on if he hasn't won in 9-10 years. And if they keep him, even better. If you're 10 years at a place and you haven't won yet in today's football, there are no more Bobby Bowdens. There are no more, coaches like that are invested. I mean, also that program wasn't in the shape that Florida State was in. So that's a good thought. That wasn't even in the outline, but okay. What is in the outline? This is something we've been thinking about doing for a few weeks. I want to dive into kind of like how you see the ACC Atlantic shaping up this year and how you kind of rank teams, how you think things will go down this year, where Florida State is, where Clemson, NC State, just kind of all of them. And the way I want to do this, we probably should have planned this better, and talked about it off air. But what I want to do is I want to go from 7th to 1st, and I want to see how many we haven't talked about this before. I was very intentional that I didn't want to talk about this before. I didn't want your notes. I didn't want to know how you ranked teams. But I want to start at 7. I think we're going to be on 7. I think we're probably going to be on 1, but we'll see how things shake out in the middle. We might not be out on 1. We'll see. But we'll see how things shake out in the middle and go from there. So 7th, I'll go first on 7. You can go first on 6. We'll alternate the rest of the way. 7th, I've got Syracuse coming in last this year in the ACC Atlantic.
Yeah, I mean I'd be surprised that they're going to win a game, but they have like 1-7 written all over them as far as conference play goes this year. Hopefully it's not us, because that'd be a bad loss.
If we lose to Syracuse, we are getting a new. You say that, but obviously, if you drop that game, but you go 7-1 in the conference, then you're fine. They've got a tough road. They've got Louisville to start out. They get that game at home, so maybe you it's actually a night game. Syracuse and Louisville on September 3rd, an 8 p.m. contest. The biggest reason is because nobody plays anybody week 1 in conference. And so that, is it's ACC network game, I'm sure, for an 8 p.m. in conference game. I think Cunningham's going to absolutely light them up. They're going to beat the heck out of them. They're, Virginia, tough one. NC State and Clemson in back-to-back weeks, really tough there. They go to Pittsburgh. We play them the next week. They go to Wake Forest and then Boston College. Maybe they can get that Boston College win at the very end of the year. I don't know. I think that's going to be really tough for them to come away with a win. But at most, I think Syracuse is getting 1 win. And so I've got them in 7th in the Atlantic. Is that their most likely win? Is Boston College? That's on the road, though, in November. So I don't know that's
their
tough. Most likely. I mean, maybe they find it. I mean, Louisville at home, first game of the year. Obviously, you'd think you're at full strength there. I don't know. Maybe they can upset Louisville. I don't see another. I don't know. Maybe at Wake. I think Wake's going to be good this year, though. So I don't know that that's a great chance. Their home games are against NC State and Virginia, us and Louisville. Maybe we're like the third most likely team to lose to them. Just because on the road, late November. You don't know how injuries have kind of played into it by then. But, yeah, Syracuse 7th. Who you got 6th?
I think we just hit on it with their most likely or their best chance to win a game. For me, it's Boston College. And this is where I think the strength of the quarterbacks in the league really starts to show a little bit, because Jurkovich is not a bad quarterback at all. And obviously Zay Flowers is still there. So they do have some pieces. I think Boston College, they're probably your classic 5-7, 6-6 type team. They just don't have a whole lot of help around them. But yeah, I think they're going to be the second worst team. And again, Syracuse, I don't think anyone's really close to them.
Boston College is my 6th as well. Their schedule sets up where I think they have more likely chances at wins. I think they probably end up beating Syracuse. They lose to NC State, but they lose to Clemson. Probably lose to us, but they play Virginia Tech early in the year. I think they could get that win. They play Louisville. I think that's a little bit more realistic for them to match up with Louisville. They get that game at home. That game's in Boston to start out October. So yeah, I like Boston College 6th. They just lost a starting offensive lineman that was ranked really, really high and projected to be a top pick in the draft. And so that's going to hurt them this year. Jurkovich and Flowers are certainly, if they win games and when they win games this year, which they're out of conference isn't terrible. They play Rutgers, they play Maine. They do have Notre Dame this year, which is tough, but then they play UConn. So they should pick up 3 out of conference wins there. And then if they, like you said, if they can beat Syracuse, they beat a Virginia Tech, they beat a Louisville, they're getting to 6 wins. I could see that for sure. But yeah, you're completely spot on. They're a 5-7 to 7-5 team. Somewhere in there, probably going to finish 6-6. They have Duke at home as well. I didn't mention that. So they should pick up if they beat Syracuse, Duke, and a Virginia Tech and win your 3 out of conference games and then upset anybody, they'll get to 7 wins. I like them for 6-6, 7-5. But yeah, I think they're probably 6th in the conference at this point. Like that's how I would kind of read them. The Duke win does kind of give them one where if they can upset somebody, they could maybe move up to 4th or 5th.
In the division, right?
In the division, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, not in the entire conference. All right, I'll go next. I've got 5th. I got Louisville here in 5th.
Okay.
I think that Malik Cunningham, and like you talked about, the strength of the quarterbacks in this conference. Yeah. Although my number one team, a little foreshadowing here, doesn't that maybe doesn't strike fear in anybody in the quarterback room. But yeah, I've got Louisville 5th. I think that the way that their schedule sets up, I think they're going to finish 5th. But it's close. What's tough about this is I think the teams from 3 to 5 to, well, like 3 to 5, like 3, 4, and 5, you could put in any order on mine. Maybe even 6. I think there's a clear 1, there's a clear 7, and then 3 to 6, 3 to 5 is a little bit tougher. Could kind of go a couple of different ways. But I've got Louisville 5th. What about you? Who you got 5th?
Yeah, it's the middle tier of the league or of the division, right? Like you said, I think we're going to have the same team up top, then another one probably a tier above the rest. And then I think there's 3 teams lumped in here. Florida State, Wake Forest, and Louisville could all be interchanged, in my opinion. I'm putting Wake Forest here, actually. I know Sam Hartman's back, and people are really high on them right now. I don't know. I think, they're going to benefit from an extremely weak out-of-conference schedule like they always do. So I'll be really intrigued to see what they look like in ACC play, because we're not going to learn anything from them with their out of conference. Outside of it, maybe Army, they've been solid lately, but that's, I think, towards the middle of the season.
Liberty, the Liberty might go in there and do some work.
So. Well, Liberty could beat them, actually, yeah. But
if we still had
when they scheduled this game, it wasn't, when they scheduled Liberty, they didn't think they were getting a team that had been in the top 20 the past few years,
No, I agree. Their schedule, they should. And for all intent purposes, although, they play Vandy. They should be Vandy too. They should start out 3-0. Then it gets tough. Like they play Clemson and us in back-to-back weeks. Clemson's going to beat them. Clemson. They have to come to Tallahassee. And so there's a great chance they start out 0-2 in the conference. Now, they could easily beat us, right? Like that. I don't think that game's a sure thing at all.
No, definitely not.
They have Boston College. They have Louisville. I think them and Louisville are on kind of the same plane, but they got to go to Louisville. Then they got to go to NC State the next weekend. So I just think their schedule kind of sets up tough. Now they do finish it off pretty nicely with Syracuse and Duke at the very end for Wake. So that should be 2 wins if they've made it through the season kind of unscathed and healthy. So yeah, but again, middle of the pack. I think they'll have a plus record in the conference, right? But it's going to be really close. They could be looking at 4-4, finishing 4th or 5th. So I had them 4th, right? You talked about having them 5th. Going back to Louisville's real quick, Louisville also has a tough schedule. Just, they start out with that game with Syracuse, like we talked about. They get Florida State at home. Then they go to BC, to Virginia. They got to play Pitt, who people are still high on, even with losing Pickett and Addison. You get Wake, who I think they're very close to. And then they have NC State and Clemson to finish off the year. Again, that just screams 4-4 to me. Like that's kind of where I see them. And essentially whoever wins that game head-to-head is who is going to come out on top. I've got Louisville 5th, Wake Forest 4th. Who's your 4th team?
So I have Louisville here.
Okay, so we just flipped these two.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to probably have the same top 3 in order, I'm guessing now. But yeah, like I said, it's not me saying who's better, who's not. I don't know. But I like Malik Cunningham at the college level a little more than I like Sam Hartman, I think. And that might be an unpopular take if you go to like the draft gurus or whatnot. But and I think Louisville, I think they have a actual, the people, their fans care about their football program, right? So I think that does play into it when you actually have a real home atmosphere for their games. Again, I put them slightly ahead. And here's the thing. I think Wake Forest could have a better record than both Florida State and Louisville, but take losses to Florida State and Louisville because I think they're slightly behind those two. So I'm going Louisville here at 4.
Yeah, and I like that. I think that what's going to end up happening is these teams in this middle 3, right? Like I think we're pretty confident on 1. Feel good about 2. Feel pretty good about 6 and 7. But 2 through 5, right? Or 3 through 5, I'm sorry, 3, 4, and 5 could end up anyway. And it's really like if either team goes 2-0 against the other two, because they're all swing games, right? Florida State and Louisville, Louisville and Wake, Wake and Florida State, Wake and Louisville. Like those are all swing games that could go any way, any direction at all. And we'll just kind of have to see how they do, right? Like if Florida State goes 2-0 in those games, they're probably going to finish above them because, right, like they all have, everybody's got to play Clemson. everybody gets to play Syracuse and Boston College, right? And so if you lose to the teams you're supposed to lose to, beat the teams you're supposed to beat, what happens in the middle of all of that, right? Florida State does have to play at Miami, which maybe makes their schedule slightly harder by having to play a little bit more of a quality opponent than Wake or Louisville does in their in their cross division. Louisville playing Virginia, Wake getting Duke. I mean, certainly Miami's better than both of those teams, and it is a rivalry. So that's tough, but it kind of matters what you do most against those two teams. Does that mean we both have Florida State at number 3?
I believe so. I think I think this is a year they could finish second. I'm not ready to put them ahead of NC State yet. But yeah, I have Florida State at 3rd. I think this is probably the most complete roster that Florida State's had, maybe going back to Jimbo's days. Obviously, we had the higher end talent like Cam Akers, Brian Burns, Tamarian Terry on recent teams, but I think this roster has the fewest holes and has a chance, especially if defense can play like I'm expecting them. I think Florida State has a chance to finish second, but I have them 3rd for right now.
Yeah, I like that call. I think that, when you look at Florida State's in-conference record, you've got 2 games that I would call really, really tough and probable losses, and that's going to NC State and then playing Clemson the very next week. If Florida State can find a way to win either one of those games, I do think they'll finish second in the conference. Maybe compete for the division, right? Or I'm sorry, finish second in the division, maybe even compete for it. But let's say those are 2 losses. Then I think you have 2 wins later in the year that are must wins, like absolute must wins, and that's in Syracuse and Georgia Tech. It's what they do in the other 4 games that really matters. They could lose any of those other 4 games. They could win any of those other 4 games. They are true. I wouldn't say that each one of them is a coin flip, but I'd say none of them have a greater than 60% chance of winning, and none of them have a greater than 60% chance of losing, right? Like I'd say they're all somewhere in that 40 to 60 split. I'd say you probably have because it's on the road, you probably have a 40 to 45% chance of beating Louisville. You probably have a 55 to 60% chance of beating Boston College. Then you look at Wake Forest. Well, that's at home. They're pretty good. It's probably 45 to 55, or like somewhere in that, or 55 to 50, somewhere in there. Same thing with Miami, right? That's probably 40 to 45% because they're at home. So I think that it's what is done in those other 4 games. I like Florida State against Wake Forest at home. I think it sets up really, really nicely that Florida State gets 2 weeks off to prepare for Louisville because you have the week 0 game. I'm not saying that 2 weeks off is the definite winner for Florida State, but I think that works out really, really well in Florida State's favor. The rivalry game against Miami is a complete coin flip. It could go either way. Then I like Florida State at home against Boston College. So if you go 3-1 in that, you finish 3rd in the division, right? Like that, to me, that's, you lose to Miami, but you win the other ones, or you lose to one of those other ones, but you beat Miami. You go 3-1 there, mix that with your 2-2 outside of it. You finish at 5-3. 5-3 is good enough for 3rd in this division, I believe, right? I think the other teams are going to go 5-3, 4-4. You could have a tiebreaker scenario there. If Florida State finishes 4th in the division because of a 5-3 tiebreaker and they lost head-to-head at Louisville, I'm not going to give them too much grief there. I think 5-3 is also, obviously, we'll spend a little bit more time on Florida State. I think 5-3 in the division is really good because I think they're going to beat Duquesne. I think they're going to beat Louisiana, and I think they're going to beat Florida. So that's 8 wins, right? You go 5-3 in the division, you're winning 8 games. And that doesn't even count the LSU game, that if you find a way to somehow, I'm wearing my purple today, if you find a way to somehow win against LSU, then you're looking at 9. I'm not predicting 9 wins, but I very easily see a path to 5 divisional wins. If you win 5 divisional games, you're probably getting to 8 wins overall, which I think is great. I think that's exactly where you need to be this year. You win 8 games going into a bowl game, win 9 with that. I don't think 9 matters much because most of the guys sign in recruiting before you get to 9 anyway. But I think 5 divisional wins is what you've got to get to this year. Obviously, you could drop a divisional game if you upset LSU. But I feel good about that 3rd place there for Florida State.
Yeah, and like you said, it's about who you beat because out of conference, like you said, we have 2 pretty much gimmies, right? In Duquesne, in Louisiana. I'm not ready to say for sure we're beating Florida yet, but in Tallahassee, Black Friday, I do like our chances there. Anthony Richardson, he's kind of like Jordan Travis.
It's over.
What's that?
That one's over. I'm saying it. Yeah. That's a win.
That's
like Duquesne.
But you also have a hotel booked in Charlotte. You also have a hotel booked in Charlotte right now.
So. Yeah, man. Why not? Where's the college football playoff this year? I need to book that.
What you do? You just did a week long in Charlotte. So if we don't get the ACC, maybe the Belk Bowl comes in that window of time. You just cancel the rest of the days.
Belk Bowl. I have an office in Charlotte, so I just they'll take care of it.
There you go. I think. And honestly, it'd be somewhat disappointing not to finish, third or better in the conference this year. Like you said, if it's a tiebreaker with Louisville and that game, you lost that close on the road. Okay, that's fine. But don't let, a team like Syracuse upset you to knock you down to fourth or fifth in the conference or in the division this year. Got to get in that top three. And, NC State playing up there is tough. If we got them in Tallahassee again, I might have put us second. But I'm just not ready to put us over NC State, knowing we have to play there and what that venue has done to us over the years.
NC State, I think their schedule sets up pretty favorably too. Getting us at home, their out of conference is pathetic. They play Eastern Carolina to start, Charleston Southern, Texas Tech, and Connecticut. They should really go into conference play with a 4-0 record, probably ranked around the top 10. That NC State Clemson game to start the conference schedule on October 1st should be a really, really good primetime matchup type game. Both teams should be going in. Yeah, pretty highly ranked. It should be close to a top 10 matchup if it's not. They get Clemson and they get Florida State. I think they lose to Clemson. I think they beat us. And so they start out 1-0, but then I really like them in almost every game after that. In fact, I mean, just on paper, I kind of like them to win each game going on. They get Syracuse on the road. I like them to win that. They get Virginia Tech with 2 weeks to prepare. Coming back home, that's a Thursday night game. I'm sorry. Let me take that back. October 27th, 2022. That is yeah, that's a Thursday night game in Raleigh. So you get your cross divisional opponent. Kind of a, I don't know, unlucky for Virginia Tech to have to go in there and play on a Thursday night. That spells, NC State win all the way. They get Wake Forest at home. Wake Forest could certainly upset them. I don't think that's, unreasonable. They do get 9 days off, 10 days off to prepare for that because they play on the Thursday night. So again, another little advantage for them getting Wake at home. They get Boston College the week after that. Obviously like them to beat BC. They do have to go on the road to Louisville. That could be a tricky one with the rivalry game against UNC the week after. Maybe a little bit of a look ahead. Cunningham could certainly upset them. I think I like NC State to win that one too. But even if they drop it, I think that's only their second conference loss, leaving them one ahead of us. And I like UNC to finish it off. I think they'll beat UNC even though it's on the road in a rivalry game. So I like them to finish second. I think they lose the head-to-head to Clemson, maybe drop one more along the way. Probably not to us, but anything could happen. You go in and upset NC State, then you're in good shape. I will say this too. Without Jordan Travis last year, Florida State went into that fourth quarter only down a touchdown, took some lucky plays, took an onside kick early, but played pretty well in that game before it kind of got out of hand late. So I don't think NC State's leaps and bounds better than Florida State. Like Richie said, I think if that game was in Tallahassee, maybe we'd view it a little bit different. But until Florida State gets out there and starts beating people they need to beat, you go in and you upset LSU, you go in and you beat a Wake Forest, you go on the road and win at Louisville, then we'll talk about beating NC State. As of now, yeah, I think NC State's probably finishing second in this division.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to come into anyone's surprise that, we both obviously have Clemson number one. NC State beat Clemson last year in overtime. I think Dabo, he is a good motivator of his team. His players do love him for the most part. For as goofy as that guy is, he can relate to those guys somehow. But yeah, they by far have the most talented roster in the conference. Obviously question marks at quarterback. That's what really kept them out of the playoff last year. Cause that was a team, you remember they held Georgia to 10 points, the first week of the season. And
7 of that was on a pick six. Yeah.
Yeah. If they had a quarterback, I mean, that was a college football playoff roster. I do think the talent level is depleting in Clemson, which is good for the rest of us. We need them to come back down to earth. It'll be interesting to see what they look like without Venables calling the defense this year. I'm excited to see what Clemson does moving forward. I do think this is, they're the clear-cut best team in the conference this year. But I think next year there's a potential if teams continue to grow, if Florida State continues to grow, that we may have a different team at number 1 next year. Because remember Florida, when they were coming off of that Urban Meyer, his last year, they had just signed the best recruiting class in history at the time, and everyone just assumed heading into the season top 5, and then they kind of just stunk. John Brantley wasn't what people thought he was going to be, and they just limped throughout the whole season. I'm hoping we're seeing that with Clemson right now, but they still do have a lot of talent.
Yeah. Their schedule gets Georgia Tech first game. Obviously, like them to go in and win that. I think that's on Labor Day. What a terrible Labor Day game. Absolute blowout incoming. They get a couple off weeks kind of with Furman and Louisiana Tech, and then they start out their home stretch on the road at Wake Forest. Wake could
potential
maybe mess around and upset them. Then they get NC State at home. Again, we were talking about that one. I expect both teams to be 4-0 going into that. But I do think that being in Death Valley, benefits them a ton, and they end up going and winning it. They get Boston College on the road and then head to Tallahassee. Certainly FSU could potentially be right in that game if fully healthy and play really well defensively. Obviously, if Clemson's offense is still kind of sputtering as it did last year, that's one that Florida State could be in. Don't know if they're good enough to pull the upset there, but we'll see kind of how games go. Obviously, they'll go on the road and they'll beat Syracuse. They get Notre Dame. Doesn't count. It's in Notre Dame, so that could be a really fun one just for Clemson in general, but doesn't affect the division or conference at all. They get Louisville at home after the Notre Dame game. Then they get Miami at home. I think Miami or Louisville with their offenses and their quarterbacks could upset Clemson. I just don't think it'll be enough to matter for the division. What we're saying at any of these games is Clemson, Wake Forest could upset them. NC State could upset them. Florida State could. Louisville could. Miami could.
6.5 over under conference wins.
Probably over. I'd probably go with 7 for them.
I think they're definitely going to drop 1. I just don't know who's going to beat them, but I don't think they're going to.
Hopefully, it's in Tallahassee.
Yeah,
hopefully it's in Tallahassee.
I think the roster is capable of doing it. You just have to stay close, get to halftime, and enter the fourth quarter close. I mean, heck, Notre Dame, we were down by 18, and they came back and sent that to overtime. Now, you don't want to bank on that, obviously, but it's definitely not last year. Yeah, well, last year when we did the show. Yeah,
you led by 3 against Clemson last year.
And they should have won. But remember, heading into the season last year, this conversation was not happening. We said,
would they minus 28? Yeah, we said, would they cover minus 28? And we were like, I'll take – I think we even said, I think I might have said, I'll take plus 28 on this. Yeah. They're going to be up 7-0 at the end of the first half. Then they're going to be up 14-0. Then they'll probably outscore us by a touchdown in the third quarter. And that's it, right? They're going to get – so, yeah, I mean, last year they were up by 3 or 4 with 3 minutes to go, and if not for a stupid penalty that they called on Jermaine Johnson for throwing the football, and then just a bad late hit call. I mean, that we gave them 30 yards of field position to start the drive. They started at midfield, and so, frustrating for sure. But yeah, I think Miami could go in there and upset them. I'm not going to predict that today. That's late November, but with their quarterback, and it all kind of rides on what quarterback play looks like for Clemson. If they can't move the ball, then any team could upset them. I think their defense is going to keep them in most games. I like Florida State's defense. If their quarterback play is not very good, Florida State's defense is going to hold them down and do pretty well. I think we'll do well against the run, but it's will the offense be able to do enough because their defense is still really, really talented. And it's the best defense we'll see all year, not close. And so, what can our offense do to keep us in the game? We're going to need some splash plays, if not for a miraculous kind of tackle / stay up last year. And then Jermaine Johnson making a heck of a play for a sack, fumble, recovery, touchdown. We'd probably lose that game 17-3, right? And it was nice to get back into it and have those couple of plays to make it seem like we were, we had a chance. And we did have a chance, but Clemson outplayed us. We just made a couple spectacular plays to get in it, but we're going to need something like that again. And, who kind of steps up and makes that play or has that big pick? Is it Robinson? Who is it? And keep us in it. But yeah, I think it'd be kind of crazy to pick anybody but Clemson until things kind of get going. We may get halfway through the season and they may drop a game to Wake and NC State and have 2 conference losses. And at that point, it's probably NC State's division.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If the NC State Clemson game, I think, is going to decide the division, who goes to Charlotte. But like you said, I think the positive takeaway is that Clemson's not some, insurmountable mountain now that just no one, it's just an auto loss that kind of like Florida State was viewed in the 90s. You knew when Florida State was coming to town, that's it. You're taking a loss this weekend. Clemson's kind of been that way the past, 4 or 5 years. And I think they're starting to come back, down to earth a little bit. And I think, the NIL, obviously, the fact that Dabo doesn't love the portal, it's going to be interesting to see if he changes what he does, because now he's lost both his coordinators he won the championships with, and we're going to see what Dabo's really has, because Brent Venables, there's a reason they were paying him $2 million a year.
Here's a question: we'll do the Coastal next week, which is, to me, is much tougher, because here it's easy. 1 and 2 are easy, 6 and 7 are easy, the middle 3 are what's tough, but all those teams are probably going to go 4 and 4 anyway, and so those 3 may flip around. We'll do the Atlantic the Coastal next week, and that'll be incredibly difficult.
That's gonna be tough. We'll probably have a lot more variation on our list for next week than we did this week.
Oh, for sure. I may not pick somebody out of spite in first, but so even though they probably deserve it. But kind of moving on and kind of rolling with this, does the ACC get somebody in the playoff this year?
I'm going to say no, because I don't know if a one-loss Clemson in the ACC championship gets in. Now, if Miami ends up having a good year and that's who they play in Charlotte, and say Miami's top 15 and Clemson, is 11-1 and wins that game, I think so. It's tricky, just not a whole lot of room for error. But, the question is, does a one-loss Clemson team get in? If it's an NC State or Miami loss, but then they make up for it and win the ACC championship, they're probably a 3 or 4 seed. But I think they're the only team in the ACC who even has a chance. So I'll say no and just take the field on this one.
Yeah, I would lean no. But Clemson's schedule will give them an opportunity to get there. They'll have a top 10 matchup, top 10-ish with NC State, have another top 10 matchup, I think, with Notre Dame. And then, a top 20 matchup, most likely with Miami as well. So
we may be in the top 25 at that point. Yeah. When we play them, there's a chance we could be in the top 25. If we win the LSU game and beat Louisville, we'll be ranked.
Yeah. So I think they'll have some of the wins that are needed to do it. Yeah. Carol, I like Carol's confidence.
Let's go.
I believe we'll beat Clemson this year. I like that. Let's do it. I'm all for that. So, okay, cool. That's it for our kind of ACC talk. Like I said, we'll do the other division next week. Quick around the horn, some basketball news, Richie.
Yeah, some very exciting basketball news. And we knew this was coming, but the dates weren't certain. But Florida State will travel to UCF on November 11th this year to play at UCF, returning the favor from last year. I'm very excited for that. And then a couple weeks later, Thanksgiving week, they're going to be at the ESPN Events Invitational at the HP Fieldhouse, Wide World of Sports, from November 24th to 27th. A really good field. Florida State going to be joined by Memphis, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Seton Hall, Siena, and Stanford. So a chance for me to see 4 games in person in Orlando with Florida State basketball this year.
It's exciting. I'll have to definitely come over to at least one of them. I don't know if I can do all 4 Orlando games, but I have to come over for one, try to make it up to Tallahassee for one as well. But good stuff there. I saw both the softball and baseball fields were getting upgrades going on, resodding, taking care of the track and stuff like that, the warning tracks. And we've got a new scoreboard going at the softball facility. So that's really, really exciting and good stuff there. You can obviously follow the FSU baseball and the FSU softball accounts to get updates on all of that. The Doak drainage system is being updated. The field's resodded there. So that's exciting and good stuff. A little FSU news at the U.S. Open. I know you're enjoying the Open, but it's not because we're doing very good, is it?
No, I'm loving the Open, but a bad week for former Knowles. Jonas Blix, Daniel Berger both missed the cut. Brooks was 3 back heading into yesterday and then kind of fell apart. 5 over on the day. He's paired with an amateur today, and their first hole took about 18 minutes. And I immediately tweeted, Brooks is going to either shoot a huge number today or get ejected for going after this guy. And sure enough, the next hole he double bogeys to go 2 over through 2. it's going to be a bad day for Brooks, but I'm really excited. Some really fun names at the top of the leaderboard. So that's what I'll be doing the rest of my day. How are you spending the rest of your Father's Day, TJ?
We're about to take off and go out to lunch. Should be a ton of fun there. We might take Elena to see that new Buzz Lightyear movie. So other than that, I think that's it. I'm just kind of chilling, trying not to do too much too crazy.
Is that streaming or is it only in theaters?
No, it's in theaters to start. Okay. We're making our way back to the movie theater. We actually took her to see Encanto in the movie theaters, and she did really, really well. So we'll try it again. We'll see what we can do. One thing we didn't get to. We didn't get to the running back hype. We'll save that for next week. We'll save running back hype for next week. We spent a lot of time on this division. I think we'll spend less time on the Atlantic because the Coastal. Because Florida State's not on that side. But we'll get through the Coastal. The Coastal's a crap show anyway, and nobody knows what's going to happen over there. But we'll get to running back hype next week. Thank you guys for hanging out. I want to give 2 shout-outs really quick. One to Gramco. Obviously, you can go to thegramco.com. Type in No Slaw, NOSLAW. I'm sorry. No, that's not No Slaw. That's DFNS25. I should make the code the same for both of them. But DFNS25, you can get all your Gramco items, 25% off your Wake and Bake coffee, your pre-roll, your gummies, the new tropical orange hard candy. Richie, have you had that yet? You had the hard candy?
I've not had that.
I'll get you some. Tropical hard candy, orange, really, really good stuff. Check that out. Give Gramco a follow. It's _Gramco on Twitter, on Instagram. Follow them. Shout out the folks at Gramco, FSU alum, for their support as well. And then, of course, we appreciate Garnet and Gold on here every week. You can go to Garnet and Gold and use this one is No Slaw, NOSLAW, to get 15% off of your order at Garnet and Gold. I mean, very exciting for what they've got coming out with the Nike drop that's coming up in August. They've got good stuff. If you're shopping for the summer, whether it's, bathing suits, I saw they have flags. They've got stuff for the beach, umbrellas, whatever you need for your summer to be decked out in no gear, garnetandgold.com. Coupon code is No Slaw. Rich, you got any other shout outs before we get out of here?
I don't think so. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I was looking at a polo. I really liked it on Garnet and Gold. It didn't have my size. And then I went to place the order 2 weeks ago, and they had it back in stock in my size, and it was already discounted like 20%. So a nice black and white FSU golf polo. Matches the Jordan golf shoes perfectly. Was wearing that out last week. But yeah, shout out Garnet and Gold. They ship. We're spoiled living in Florida because we get everything within like 2 days of ordering.
2 days. Yeah. There's no reason to pay for expedited shipping. I always just go over $75 to make sure that I get it for free, because if you're going to pay for shipping, might as well just have a couple more items in there. But if you live in Florida, no reason to pay for expedited shipping. It gets to you like 2 days later. So,
and if you're in Tallahassee, you can pick it up and we'll have it ready for you.
Yeah. Same day. So if you order early in the morning, it'll get out that day. If you order like 5 p.m., then it's going to be 3 days. So anyway, all right, we will be back next week. I doubt a pop-up show this week. What is it, the 19th? Yeah, no pop-up show this week. We'll be back next week. We'll talk about the Coastal Division. We'll talk about the running back hype that we've seen on social media. Until then, we will you can follow us on social media to kind of stay up with everything else that's going on. See you guys next week. Happy Father's Day. Go Noles.